Are you thinking about moving to Washington, D.C. and you're wondering what the pros and cons are? The last time I did a pros and cons video on Washington, D.C., it was just at the dawn of this crazy thing called COVID. So it's been almost 3 years since I've done it. And this has actually been the most watched video on my channel. So I figured things have changed. It's about time for an update. I'm Melissa Terzis, DC Real Estate Mama. This is my channel. I talk about all things living in DC and real estate. If that's your thing, please subscribe. And my contact info we're gonna put on the screen right here. All right, let's start with the pros of living in Washington, D.C. So number one, D.C. has a plethora of job opportunities. You know that the federal government is here. I know that you know that. But what you don't know is that there's a really diverse job market that includes a whole ton of different industries and companies. The World Bank is here. MedStar is a big medical company here that owns a ton of stuff. Amazon, Google, tons of government contractors like Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman. Marriott is here. All of these companies also support business travel to the area, which means the hospitality industry is also kind of thriving. There's several job centers, so it's not just like everybody is commuting to downtown DC. We've got Tyson's Corner out in Virginia, which is a huge job area. The 270 corridor in Maryland is a lot of like biotech and stuff, and then the parts of Arlington and some other commercial areas where people commute to. So number two of the pros is that it's very international and diverse here. So DC's definitely a melting pot. Some people come for a few years and leave. Other people come and they just stay and put down roots here and stay for a long time. I will say that having my kids in DC schools, I feel like they have really thrived by having such a diverse and international group of students with them. There's so much that they learn. There's things that they celebrate and different little things where people can bring part of their culture. And that's been really good, I think, for the kids to kind of learn about all of that and not be isolated in this little bubble. Another pro connected to that, which is one of my favorite things, is that it sort of leads us into the next item, which is we have a lot of food variety here, number three, the number three pro. So DC is a city of foodies, and there are plenty of restaurants from that like hole in the wall with really great food all the way to Michelin-starred restaurants here. DC has 24 of those, and you can mostly get any ethnic food that you could ever possibly want. I personally give DC 5 stars for their awesome choice of Ethiopian restaurants, which is one of my favorite kind of foods. So number four, we have a very convenient location in the country. You can get to the beach in 2 hours. You can also go skiing in a couple hours. This makes DC a great place for day trips. If you want to stay overnight, you can go to New York. It takes about 4.5 hours by train. You can go to the Outer Banks of South Carolina, which are 4 to 5 hours away. We also have 3 airports that service the area, and traveling overseas is a breeze. See what I did there? I made a little rhyme. Something of a secret is that you can get the auto train to Florida from Lorton, Virginia, which is just south of the city. You can load your car on, sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride to the Sunshine State. So pro number 5 is weather. Weather can probably be a pro or a con depending on what you like, depending on the day, but it's mostly a pro. It does get muggy and humid here, but year-round I would say we fare pretty well. I was with clients today and they said, "Is this winter in DC?" And I said, "This is winter. It's 40 degrees. That's about right. We did have a cold snap a few weeks ago, but 30, 40, that's about right for us." We have 4 seasons here. We usually only have a few days in the summer where it's triple digits, and we usually only have a few days in the winter where it's single digits. Some winters we get snow, but not all winters. And if you want snow, don't forget that skiing and cabins are just a couple hours away. So number 6 of the pros is free museums. So enjoy seeing your tax dollars at work, because this is amazing. Many of the museums that are part of the Smithsonian Institution are free. This means that there is a fun and educational outing just around the corner in your city. There's also a bunch of museums like of other types that will pop up. They sometimes have an entrance fee, some of which become permanent. These typically will, like I said, have an admission fee, but they are always really, really interesting and worth the day to explore. We have the Spy Museum. We had something called Newsam, which was about news and how news has kind of affected things over the years. They have pieces of the Berlin Wall in that museum, so very, very interesting stuff. Now we have to move to the cons. All right, so number 1 is traffic. Because we don't really have a central area where all the businesses are, there's always traffic like in many different directions that like just doesn't always make sense. There's no such thing as against traffic. I used to commute out to Maryland from DC and people would say, oh good, that's against traffic. There's no such thing, okay? Because what they'll do is close roads that normally go two ways and they'll make them one way coming in the morning when people are going downtown and then one way back out to the suburbs when people are headed home. So you can't really bank on having like a reverse commute back out of the city. There are a lot of cars on the road here, and while Metro has added lines to service areas like Dulles, people are still pretty car reliant in the area. The other problem with traffic is that we have traffic cameras here, speeding camera tickets, you run a stop sign, you don't stop behind the white line. That's sort of part and parcel with the whole traffic situation, is because when it does open up, you just want to go 40 or 50 miles an hour, and if it's a 25 speed zone, flash, flash, you're going to get a camera ticket in the mail. Hooray! Number 2 of the cons is navigating the schools is a complete cluster of crazy. So in DC, there are public schools, there are charter schools. The lottery that governs the system in DC can be very difficult to navigate for people, especially when people are coming from a place where it was a choice of either like your neighborhood public school or going to the 1 or 2 private schools that might be in your town. It is no secret that COVID really did a number on the educational system. For teachers and our kids. DC was kind of on the upswing of improving schools, but then I think suffered during the pandemic. Finding programs for special needs or advanced learners is tougher, as it seems like everybody's kind of just teaching to the middle. And that theme became more prevalent during those times of homeschooling. So it's slightly more straightforward in Maryland, with schools being run by the county, or in the case of Virginia, a city within which they reside. But it still can be kind of confusing because some places like Montgomery County, they do have other options. They do have like other career or tech focused high schools. Same thing in Virginia. There's like a couple other options, but it's not as like convoluted as DC's is. So navigating this can be tough. Number 3 of the cons is taxes. There is so much to know about taxes here. I have separate videos on taxes that you should check out for a deeper dive if you are interested. If you live in DC, your license plate may say taxation without representation. Why is this? Because we get taxed in the city for living here and we have no real representation in Congress. You know how they say to people, hey, if you don't like it, call your senator? Well, in DC, you have no senator. All right, so you don't have any options. And then in the House of Representatives, we do have a representative, but they can't vote on bills that are being considered. Up in Maryland, you will be taxed by the state and also the county, which really cranks up the income tax that you pay. And Virginia almost has more of like a flat tax. It's like 5.75. And while that may sound great and you're thinking, okay, Virginia sounds better, there's something else you have to know. Virginia taxes personal property to include cars, RVs, boats, airplanes, if you happen to be one of those people. So you have to look out for that as well. And that does not come cheap. So number 4, speed cameras and other Big Brother nonsense that we have here in DC. So I'm friends with some realtor moms in some other parts of the country, and when they heard that we had speed cameras here and like red light flashing cameras, they were like blown away. I mentioned this a little bit before in the traffic part, but gonna go a little bit more into it here. This is definitely a pain, especially when it feels like you're on a road with absolutely no traffic, and so why can't you just go a little bit faster? I know, I'm breaking the law, I know. Anyway, I was also sitting at a red light once and I was checking out the GPS on my phone to make sure that I was like heading in the right direction after the light turned and I was going to proceed. And a Secret Service police officer like comes up and knocks on my window, which was up, and he was like, put your phone down, put your phone down. I mean, who the hell are you? It's like being yelled at by stupid Big Brother. You're not even a police officer. You're like the Secret Service. Like, who cares? Anyway, I mean, somebody's really always watching you here, and that's something that you have to just take note of. So number 5 of the cons is the cost of living. Another topic I have done several very in-depth videos on for DC, Northern Virginia, and Maryland. The cost of living here is high, and there is a huge range in salaries for people who come to work in the city. For those in the nonprofit sector or the lower end of the government pay grades, making ends meet here can really be a challenge. So, number 6 of the cons is politics. You are not going to survive in this city unless you're me, who turns a blind eye to all of it. It is hard to do, though, as you are going to have friends who are in the chaotic world of government, and you'll feel both in the know when you hear their stories and also enraged when you hear their stories about budget and how they spend money and how when they, I don't know. I had a friend who said that they didn't use up all their budget, so they were just buying random computers and stacking them in people's offices, and nobody was using these computers. And I'm sorry, if you're somebody who works really hard like me and forfeits a lot of family time, these kind of things can be maddening. They really can. So you may not mind, though, and although people's careers and friendships can be made or broken based on political affiliation, it is very tough here. I know people who have lost friends over the fact that they were aligned with the wrong party. That's how things go here. I just think it's better to not talk about it at all. We could go on about pros and cons forever, but those sum up what living in DC and the surrounding area is like. If you have any questions, please contact me. My contact info is coming next.